Dismantling Stereotypes, An Affair to Remember. So, the synopsis of An Affair to Remember is the two main characters are Nikki and Terry, and they are both engaged at the beginning of the movie to other people. And they meet each other and they fall in love while on a ship. And they decide in 6 months' time they'll meet up again. And if they're both single and have met their respective career goals, that they will pursue a relationship with each other. So while Terry's on her way to meet Nikki, she ends up getting hit by a car, which requires her needing a wheelchair. So she ends up never going to meet Nikki and just hiding it from him. And throughout the movie, they meet through different series of fate. And eventually, Nikki does find out about it, and he ends up accepting her at the end of the movie, and they end up together. So the physical impairment is the disability in this movie. So, a physical impairment is any physiological disorder or condition, cosmetic disfigurement, or anatomical loss affecting one or more of the body systems. So, in An Affair to Remember, Terry gets hit by a car and she loses the ability to walk, so she's required to use a wheelchair. But I feel like in the movie, they try to show it as little as possible. Like in scenes when she's out and about, obviously she'll have to be using it, but for example, the movie theater scene, she's sitting in a chair, so that's why Nikki is unable to realize that she's disabled or that she has a disability because they are hiding it in the movie chair. And I feel like they do that a lot throughout the movie as to not bring as much attention to the disability. So, the psychosocial stigma, the movie portrays a physical impairment as something to be ashamed of. It follows the stereotype that a disability is a sickness in need of a cure, and this comes from one of those 6 stereotypes in the Block article. So Terry is confined by her disability. Her disability interferes with her life choices as well as her ability to realize her own will. And in the Hayes and Black argument or article, they explain that many movies will show these confinements of disability. And Terry's confinement is that she is in her wheelchair and she has limited physical movement. But as she also has to change a lot of her life choices. For example, she doesn't go to meet Nikki and she feels like she loses a life partner potentially. And she also ends up switching her career uh, because of her disability. So the movie even ends with the quote, "If you can paint, I can walk." And this just goes to reinforce the idea held throughout this entire movie that disabilities are something to be cured, and her inability to walk is something that can be cured and that she wants to be cured. And the end goal is that she is cured, and just not really being able to accept her for as she is in the moment. And the effect on individuals. So, people with disabilities may be offended by the movie's portrayal of life with a disability. The movie promotes that disabilities need to be cured. It also promotes the notion that people with disabilities are not deserving of relationships, love, and self acceptance. So, this is from the Longmore article, which describes some of the tropes found in movies about characters with disabilities. And I think this implies that, people with disabilities may internalize that and it may affect the way that they view themselves and the way that they think that the world views them. And the non disabled may feel pity for Terry, may believe that disabilities are negatively life altering and should be something that is cured. So, the learning experience, I got a new perspective on a classic movie. I have seen this movie before. It is like let me do quick math, like a 60-year-old movie, almost 70-year-old movie. And you can definitely tell its its views on disability and just the whole perspective that it's something that is life altering and shameful and something to be cured is a perspective that I really hope that we are straying away from. And I hope that in our current media we will not be seeing that perspective as often. And then it also made me reflect on my own biases and pity response. I have definitely had a pity response before while viewing movies like this, or, um, for example, some of those super crip examples in the article. I have definitely been the person feeling pity when now I know that is not the correct response, and people with disabilities do not care about my pity and honestly do not need it. And as a teacher, I don't want to let disabilities define my students or to have a pity response to my students. And then my reflection, I learned many things from the readings and from viewing an Affair to Remember. One thing is that it is difficult to find a movie that portrays a character with a disability without following one of the many tropes and stereotypes that were listed in the readings. In this movie, the main character is depicted as pitiful for seemingly losing everything. She loses her potential partner, her ability to walk, and has to switch careers. And again, it just made me think about hopefully how far we've come from 1957 until now, and that hopefully as a society we're starting to shift our views from a point of seeing disabilities as something to pity to and then maybe changing to a viewpoint of embracing them and just seeing it as another part of a person.